In its 11-year history, 3 women have officially taken part in an FE race. These were Simona De Silvestro, Michaela Cerruti, and Katherine Legge. But the last time we saw one on the grid was about 10 years ago, and with the driver pool of Formula E seemingly getting smaller and smaller year on year, it's never been harder to find a seat. However, among the top motorsports, I'd say Formula E has done an admirable job in encouraging young female talent, especially with the all-woman rookie test conducted last fall in Girona, promoting teams to run a female driver in tests going as far back as 2018, and other opportunities such as the one granted to Rima Labout, who set the record for FIA acceleration last year in the Gen Beta. But as mentioned, finding a spot on the Formula E grid is an absolute challenge these days. Today, we'll talk about the history of female drivers in Formula E, as well as who I believe has the best shot of getting a slot on the FE grid. Before I begin, I do want to give a shout out to a good friend of mine, Formula E Bengal, over on Twitter, who gave me the idea for this video, so go give them a follow if you enjoyed it. When Formula E rocked up on the streets of Beijing in 2014, 2 women were among the 20 participants, Katherine Legge racing for Amlin Aguri, and Michaela Cerruti for Trulli. But neither would make it to the end of the season, nor score any points. Legge, though, would make a brief reappearance 4 years later to compete in the Jaguar I-Pace E-Trophy, a series I like to remind people existed every once in a while, where she actually won a race in Mexico City. Simona De Silvestro became the 3rd woman to start an FE race at the end of the year, and continued with the Andretti team for Season 2 full-time. Although she was thoroughly beaten by teammate Robin Freins, she was able to compete for points and score 2 top 10 finishes, both P9s. She later took part in the 2018 Diriyah test, which saw 9 female drivers take to the track, and since then has worked with the Tag Heuer Porsche team behind the scenes as a reserve driver, competing for their customer team Kiro at the women's test this year. All 3 of these women, and others like Susie Wolff and longtime Envision Sim driver Alice Powell, have really opened the door for young female racers into Formula E. FE CEO Jeff Dodds has been incredibly open about potentially creating a junior series for women in hopes of one joining the grid one day. While those seem to be pipe dreams at the moment, the opportunities that have been created have allowed for a short list of drivers that I believe may have decent shots at finding seats in the coming years. First and foremost, Jamie Chadwick. Chadwick is probably one of the most well-known female racers out there, mostly due to her utter domination in the W Series. Since then, she's served as a development driver for the Williams F1 team, raced in Indy Next, where she scored her first victory last year, and this year competes in ELMS, where she and her co-drivers are currently leading the LMP2 championship after 2 victories. But all this time, she's also seen her fair share of Formula E seat time, competing in the 2018 test in Diriyah with Neo, the 2020 Marrakesh rookie test with Jaguar, then after a few years off, rejoined the Jaguar team this season to compete in the 2024 women's test, as well as the rookie free practice in Jeddah, and is expected to test later this year in Berlin as well. Being a part of the Jaguar team seems to be a great move in terms of finding a spot in the grid, as Nick Cassidy was recently announced to be leaving the team, and even Mitch Evans' contract hasn't looked too secure for the coming years. And outside of that, their customer team Envision seems to have 2 slots rumored to soon become available. The issue, though, is that I just can't see Chadwick being the number 1 option for any of them. Honestly, I think her test with Jaguar this year will really dictate her future in FE. In the rookie free practice session in Jeddah, she was only 9th quickest out of 11 drivers, 2.6 seconds slower than pace setter Kush Maini. And in the women's test in Girona, although 2nd fastest, she was a good 3/10 off of Abbi Pulling. All this being said though, with all of her racing experience and her success in a multitude of categories, I can't help but feel that 27-year-old Chadwick still has the best shot at getting a spot in the FE grid, especially with all the openings in the Jaguar camp. Number 2, Abbi Pulling. But speaking of that women's test in Girona, how about we talk about the driver who topped it? In her first ever outing in an FE car, Pulling set a 1 minute 30.889, albeit in a very quick Nissan, which was only 2 seconds off of the slowest lap time during the Girona test from the actual Formula E drivers, set by Nico Muller. Not a bad first run at all. It should have been expected though, considering Pulling was a frontrunner in the W Series, and last year took home a dominant F1 Academy title. Also worth mentioning is that she's currently managed by Alice Powell, so that couldn't have hurt in terms of coming to grips with the unique conditions of an FE car. This year, she races in the GB3 Championship for Rodin, a series I know absolutely nothing about, so won't comment on. But that test certainly seemed like an impressed Nissan, and I wouldn't be surprised to see her at Berlin later this year. If she does take part, I'm honestly incredibly interested to see how she puts up against the likes of Pourchaire or Drugovich, 2 of the highest rated prospects right now. But once again, it comes down to if she's the top choice among the free agents available. For Nissan, they seem to prefer Gabriele Mini at the moment, giving him the nod for the Jeddah free practice, with the Italian doing admirably. Time will tell for Pulling, but in my opinion, out of all the female drivers currently on the market, she may have the most raw potential to succeed in Formula E. Number 3, Marta Garcia. Yet another F1 Academy/W Series alumni, the 2023 champion currently races in the Le Mans Cup in the GT3 category, and was involved in this nasty accident in Barcelona earlier this year, one of the most egregious incidents I've probably ever seen. What's forgotten though is that this occurred while she was actually in the lead of the race. But all that aside, she made her Formula E testing debut last year in Berlin, testing for ERT, and although she only placed 19th quickest, one behind her teammate Michael Ascana, that was really all she could do in the ERT. This year, she was signed by Porsche for the women's test and placed 8th quickest, ahead of some key names. While she hasn't been the most flashy in her outings so far, I think we could definitely see her back in an FE car if she keeps her Porsche ties. I wouldn't rule her out for maybe a Kiro slot at the Berlin rookie test. A full race seat though may be a bit more of a challenge. Number 4. Ella Lloyd. The last driver I want to give a shout in this video, even if she may be a bit of a long shot, is Ella Lloyd. Lloyd is only 19 years old, but has already taken a victory in her first full F1 Academy season, only her 5th race in the series. But outside of this, she hopped into the McLaren seat for the women's test and went 7th quickest. Pretty impressive considering it was her first time in a single-seater outside of an F4 car, setting a lap time quicker than far more experienced drivers such as Marta Garcia, Chloe Chambers, and Alice Powell. She even caught the eye of Neil McLaren's team manager and former FE driver Gary Paffett. But the reason I'm a little hesitant to consider her as a top prospect is just because of how green she is. But a few years down the line, she could definitely be a force to be reckoned with considering how fast she's been able to adapt. Now, I do know I've given a lot of weight to testing in this video, which we all know, me more than most, can be misleading. I mean, I seriously predicted Eduardo Mortara to win the 2023 Formula E title based on Maserati's testing times, but the fact of the matter is, these tests really are all that we have at this point, and it's the team's best way to compare these drivers to others. Although in my opinion, Formula E should definitely look into setting up a rookie test race, beat F1 to the punch once again. But again, I do have to bring up the primary reasons teams may be hesitant to take a risk on Chadwick or Pulling or any of them. Unless they can score highly in the combined rookie tests, I just can't see anything that would give them an edge over the top free agents like Pourchaire or Drugovich or Maini, drivers who have a lot more experience and more proven success in other categories. Nissan was even looking at signing Pulling to do the Berlin test last year, but felt more confident in one of their proven sim drivers in Luca Ghiotto. But in my opinion, there's no better time to trial out a new driver. The Gen 4 is coming a season from now, and if you want to make a drastic change, do it before next season so they have a year to get used to Formula E before the playing field is leveled. It would be a risk for sure, but it could pay off, and it would give opportunities to talented women whose careers seem to hit brick walls after showing some promise. With that said, I don't want to sound like Formula E needs female drivers for the sake of having female drivers. I would definitely prefer a grid of the strongest drivers, but there's no doubt in my mind that if done correctly, that grid could absolutely include women. And by that, I mean the team shouldn't rush to promote these drivers either. Trust me, I'm a longtime NASCAR fan. I lived through the years of Danica Patrick. Patrick genuinely had potential when she came into NASCAR, but she was rushed to the Cup Series after just one full season of Nationwide, which is like the F2 of NASCAR. If she'd spent a few more seasons in Nationwide, I think she definitely could have been a better driver once she moved up. So, I think that based on a few more tests, in particular the combined Berlin test with both male and female drivers, teams can really test their prospects and make an educated decision based on those results. But now, I want to ask you what you think, and I ask you to please be respectful in the comments. Out of all the drivers I mentioned, who do you think has the most potential to adapt to Formula E? Or is there another driver that you think could be an even better fit and is being considered? I'd love to hear what you think. Thank you all for watching. Once again, thank you to my good friend Formula E Bengal for the idea, and I'll see you all in the next one.